Developed 6 years ago by Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp in San Francisco, Uber is an on-demand service application powered through the smartphone platform. Users can download an application that uses GPS technology to locate drivers. Then you can hail a cab and pay directly through your phone by credit card. The taxi-hailing app has gained and expanded rapidly since the prices are cheaper than traditional taxis. However, the driver-contractor has not the same status as a taxi since he doesn't have a license, but a professional card. We could consider Uber as a sharing economy since the drivers provide their own cars to satisfy the service. However, Uberization, as I would say, has faced a lot of violent oppressions all around the world.
Let's talk about unfair competition. It occurs when one competitor acts in a way that may harm the interests of other competitors through deceptive or wrongful business practice. In this situation, taxi companies claim that this is the case with Uber. Let's see what each side has to say about this.
The taxi industry primarily argues that Uber engages in unfair competition because it operates outside of the regulatory framework that burdens their industry. Most cities regulate the taxi industry with a medallion system. Under this system, a taxi driver must either lease or own a medallion to operate. These regulations have reduced competition in the ground transportation market, and Uber has gained significant market share by ignoring them. Indeed, Uber is not subject to the same regulatory framework as taxis because it is an information sharing technology, not a transportation service. As a result, no court has definitively determined that Uber's practices constitute unfair competition. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission has even claimed that Uber promotes a more efficient allocation of resources. Though Uber benefits from these regulatory exceptions, the company has gained significant market share through utilizing its size to generate below-market fares, poor labor treatment, and anti-competitive behavior, such as ordering and canceling rides from other ride-sharing services. Evidence for this is that during the first 3 quarters of 2015, Uber lost $1.7 billion while booking $1.2 billion in revenue.
To get Uber's point of view, we reached out directly to their headquarters to get the information from the most reliable source possible. We got a reply from Krzysztof Radoszewski, marketing lead for Central and Eastern Europe. Here's what he said. According to the chief of Polish Office of Competition and Consumer Protection, Uber's competitive advantage originates from innovative usage of modern technology, which 1. provides consumer-friendly functionalities unavailable through traditional taxi services, and 2. reduces the end cost of service to our riders due to much higher efficiency on the platform. That is, driver partners spend most of their time driving instead of being idle. OCCP also highlights that the basic technology upon which our system was developed isn't patented and is widely available to other players who can leverage it in a similar way. Our expansion is widely considered to drive a positive change within the sector. 1. Consumers have a new alternative to choose from, and 2. Transportation companies in the segment begin to improve the quality of services they provide. Regarding our market entry strategy and local laws, business decisions whether to enter a market are driven by our market research and, in most cases, existing demand. We tend to see thousands of app downloads in most markets prior to launch. The law was never able to follow technology, and we see now, across the industries, that the gap has never been greater, which is why we engage in debate with regulators, other industry owners, and industry organizations to make sure that in the fast-growing tech business environment, 2 things are being secured: consumer protection and lowering the barriers for business to operate to boost innovation and local economies.
We can observe market failure due to negative externality of Uber on the activity of traditional taxi companies. It can be argued whether it's in production or consumption. However, for our diagrams, let's assume it's a negative externality in production of Uber. Here we have to take into account that demand, marginal private benefit for taxi services, is quite inelastic, as it's usually used by people with high income and will not be substituted by public transport. Furthermore, supply, marginal private cost, is quite elastic, which suggests that it's easy to change output. For instance, Uber is using strategy of dynamic pricing, which implies adapting prices according to the current level of demand. Therefore, shift of supply to the left, which is marginal private cost plus marginal social cost, as the result of negative externality in production, will cause optimum quantity to be just slightly lower than the equilibrium one and optimum price to be significantly greater than the equilibrium price. As the appearance of Uber has a negative effect on the third party and consequently generates welfare loss, it is now banned or subject to serious restrictions in France, Germany, Italy, Spain and Belgium. However, we strongly believe that it's not the best solution, and instead of absolute prohibition, Uber has to be legally regulated and restricted in order to encourage equal competition in the market. One of the market changes that seems to be obvious is to impose tax on Uber in order to equalize costs of Uber and its main competitors' taxes. As a result, equilibrium and optimum prices will be even higher, and equilibrium and optimum quantities will be lower. Hence, it will harm more the more inelastic side, which in this case is consumers. Therefore, as it will not remarkably increase cost of Uber and it will create regressive taxation, we do not consider tax on Uber as an option. Consequently, we propose to give subsidy to traditional taxi firms in order to compensate their higher costs and so they can compete more effectively with Uber. In this situation, equilibrium and optimum prices will be lower, but equilibrium and optimum quantities will be higher. Although customers will benefit more from the subsidy due to demand being more inelastic, it's still likely to affect positively taxis. As in this case, with lower price for consumers, they might be more concerned with their safety and prefer traditional taxis over Uber. Furthermore, taxis will still benefit from subsidy, which allow them to cover some costs and therefore increase their profits. However, this option will require government expenditure, which is an obvious drawback. We could also apply a minimum price strategy in the market of all taxi services. Let's assume our total supply is quite elastic, as for Uber and taxis it's not extremely difficult to change their levels of output, and the demand is inelastic for the same reasons as we described for Uber diagrams. Therefore, we increase producer surplus, as even though we can increase significantly the price, the quantity will not change a lot, so the firm's revenue will reasonably increase. Moreover, the establishment of the minimum price will prevent the unfair competition. However, it will reduce consumer surplus and will generate excessive supply. These negative consequences make us prefer the other regulations over this one. Another option is to liberalize the taxis activity. Originally, the fixed rate of taxi fare was set in order to prevent asymmetric information in drivers benefiting from it. However, if we find another way to protect consumers, then this restriction will no longer be necessary and will allow taxis to be more competitive. We also fix this inequality in the market by imposing regulations upon Uber, such that its costs increase and consequently its prices. Through coercing Uber and its drivers to get license and pay for social security, we will encourage fair competition.
To succeed in the transportation market, the taxi industry should, for example, adjust its pricing structure to match the flexibility of Uber's surge pricing model. Its increasing growth will undoubtedly dismantle the taxi industry's regulated monopoly of the ground transportation market. In our opinion, this situation is not unfair competition. There exist other studies that support our statements, such as Porter's 5 forces analysis, which considers the buyer's power, the intensity of rivalry, and the threat of substitutes. It measures the competitiveness of the market. If Uber doesn't give in to its competitors' pressure, it should become the leader in network transportation and prove to be an extremely lucrative company.